and welcome to In the Oil Patch Radio Show. I'm your host, Kym Bolado, and today we have a great person in studio with us today. He's actually Stephen Boyd, who is the Senior Managing Director for Suncoast Resources. Steve, welcome to the show. Is it Steve or Stephen?
Either one is fine.
Well, welcome to the show, Stephen.
Well, you bet. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, you know, we wanted to have Suncoast on the radio show because just recently we had your CEO and president, Kathy Laney, on our cover of Shale magazine. And that was a treat because, first things first, we know that she doesn't do a whole lot of interviews and media, so we felt very privileged to have her come in and talk a little bit about how she built this empire. But first of all, I want to start off with, tell me a little bit about Suncoast Resources. How large is it for our listeners who maybe have not read Shale magazine and the profile on Kathy Laney?
Well, Suncoast Resources was founded by Kathy Laney in 1985, 33 years ago. She invested $2,000. And last year, we had revenues in excess of $1.3 billion. So the company was founded in Houston, Texas. Kathy originally is from East Texas, and she worked for a fuel distributor, Jasper Oil Company, up in East Texas, and during a high school work-study program. And they opened an office in Houston and decided to do something a little bit different and close that particular division. And Kathy decided at that point in time, at the age of 23, that she would go forth and start a company of her own. So with the modest savings she had, she decided to incorporate, and that's how Suncoast was born. She rented a couple of transport trucks and worked pretty much around the clock for several years, developing departments as she went along from day to day. And today we have almost 1,600 employees. We have 18 offices. Our headquarters is here in Houston, Texas, and we are basically a one-stop energy shop.
Yes, when you say one-stop energy shop, I want to cover that because Suncoast is very, very large, and it's an amazing story, and she's an amazing woman. And as a woman myself, she is definitely a role model for me. But Suncoast it has a lot of different products within it. So tell us a little bit about the product lines that you guys carry.
Okay, well, Suncoast Resources, again, as I indicated before, simply stated, is a one-stop energy shop, but we offer and supply high-quality gasolines, diesel fuels, lubricants, transportation services, and all sorts of other related services and programs that the thousands of customers that we serve rely on to keep their businesses running at peak performance and basically keep America running. We supply large railroad transportation companies, the airlines, federal and state agencies. We supply small plumbing houses, construction companies, bakeries, any company or enterprise that consumes fuel on a daily basis. About 85% of our total sales are represented by diesel fuel. That's the working fuel of the commercial industrial sector. So we are very high on supporting our many customers with high-quality products. And as they come to us year after year and ask for specific new products and services, we develop them. About 15 to 20 years ago, there was an opportunity to get involved in emergency fueling response. And so Kathy Laney and her husband Kyle decided to introduce and develop a program of emergency fueling. So over the course of the last 40 major named storms, Suncoast has been called on time and time again to provide the fuel and the related products and services required when power is interrupted to the major grids. For example, during Harvey, followed by Irma, and then Maria, Suncoast provided fuel to contract customers of every size to operate generators to keep them going during the very difficult times.
And we're going to get a little bit further into your emergency response later on in the show, but I want to come back to, is this a nationwide chain, or are there specific regions in the United States that you guys focus on?
Even though we have a national footprint, we're licensed in 39 states across the United States, our roots run deep in Texas, particularly Houston and 18 other markets where we have offices. Midland, for example, is a huge market for us. We have a large complex there. We have a lot of trucks, big office facility, Kathy doesn't like to call it a man camp, but a facility where we can accommodate our drivers that make deliveries around the clock. We have offices in Jasper and Corpus Christi. We have a big office in San Antonio. We have a new facility in Pecos that we just purchased in addition to Midland. We're now in Freeport. We're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, actually Grand Prairie, and the list goes on and on and on. So we've located key facilities near high demand centers where our customers require, special products and attention to detail, where if we only had a facility in Houston, they'd either have to come a long way to go through our will call services, or we'd have to travel a very long distance to support them. And so we decided to open up a lot of offices strategically located in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. But for example, years ago when Superstorm Sandy hit the Northeast, we were called upon by agencies and companies of every size to go up there, and we had a couple hundred trucks up there for several months supplying the fuel required to heat the hotels, hospitals, apartment complexes.
It's everything.
Offices and everything else. So
when we get back, I want to get into your specific job and what is your day like running this amazing company with a husband and a wife team. But we do have to take a quick break. You are listening to In the Oil Patch Radio Show, and we'll be right back. Back. You're listening to In the Oil Patch Radio Show. Our guest today is Stephen Boyd, who is the Senior Managing Director for Suncoast Resources, Inc. Stephen, before the break, we were talking about just how really large and dynamic Suncoast Resources as a company is. But I want to get into, first of all, you are the Senior Managing Director. Tell me a little bit about what your day is like and give me some insight into what runs Suncoast Resources in this massive company.
Well, Kym, I'm just one player and one member of the team of Suncoast Nation, and we have approximately 1,600 employees. My specific job is to secure and arrange the supply of products located at all the fuel terminals that we lift products from to supply our thousands of customers. So we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and our customers rely on us for the quality products that are the lifeline for them to keep doing what they do and to keep America running ultimately. Be it in the agricultural sector, the retail and wholesale manufacturing sector. And so we have developed a line of products geared towards making their life a lot easier and developed a company that they can rely on no matter what, when other competitors of ours either can't or won't operate around the clock every day of the year with the diverse portfolio of products and services that they require. So in the morning when I get in, the first thing I do is I start reading over the periodicals and look at the various forecasts from the federal government, from the state government, from the Railroad Commission, from the newspaper, from the radio, from television news sources, and from the various contacts that I have. And then I prepare a small blog informing our extensive sales force. We have about 60 field sales representatives currently and all of our significant managers, so they can take a look at what's going on in the state of Texas, in Louisiana, in Oklahoma that's going to affect us. What's going on worldwide with the politics and President Trump's musings and how that could possibly impact the price. And then I try to give a forecast every single day on where I think prices are headed in the short term, the intermediate term, and the long term. This business is very exciting because the whole world really does run on oil. And Texas is the biggest player in the production of it. Every day, the United States consumes just short of 20 million barrels a day of products derived from crude oil, and the world consumes about 100 million barrels a day. So the United States, with roughly 5 or 6% of the U.S. population, consumes 20 to 25% of the total oil. And there's nothing more exciting than being in an industry and working for a company that is on the razor edge of providing those products. So we offer specialized programs like fixed pricing. If we had a customer like a big mining customer or railroad transportation company, we have a price management program. So we can offer a price for diesel fuel, for example, that would not change over a month, a week, a day or two.
So someone can budget
year.
and forecast.
That's right. So since prices change every second of every day and are posted on the New York Mercantile Exchange, I monitor that throughout the day. And in the event that we have a customer that would like a fixed price, I go ahead and hedge that on the New York Mercantile Exchange, offer that to the customer. And as they lift the products from us at the various terminals, then I unwind that paper hedge and we both win.
So earlier I asked you, tell me a little bit about your background. I mean, obviously you worked for Suncoast Resources for a very long time, but what is your educational background? Are you a stockbroker or past? I mean, what is it that makes you an expert in this area?
Well, I don't know that I'm necessarily an expert. I mean, I work hard at my job. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin, started with Amoco Oil in downtown Chicago, worked with them for 10 years in their international headquarters, and then went and left. Worked for an independent refiner in Chicago also, and we actually closed that operation down when we lost our line of credit in the 80s. And I came, luckily, to Texas, moved to Houston in 1981.
Got here as fast as you could.
As fast as I could, and I don't tell anyone I'm from Wisconsin, but that's where
you can kind of tell a little bit of that.
I graduated from the university there, and I'm proud of that. Got my MBA from the University of Houston and was recruited out of Texas City Refining, where I worked in Texas City for a number of years by the Coastal Corporation, and worked for the Coastal Corporation, which was later bought out by El Paso Corporation, and retired from El Paso Corp 15 years ago, and have been luckily and happily with Suncoast ever since.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely an expert in being around oil and gas for a very, very long time. When we get back from break, I want to get into the emergency services that Suncoast Resources also offers as well. But we do have to take a quick break. You are listening to In the Oil Patch Radio Show, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to In the Oil Patch Radio Show. I'm your host, Kym Bolado, and we have Steve Boyd, the Senior Managing Director of Suncoast Resources, in studio today. And Steve, before the break, we were talking about a lot of what Suncoast Resources is doing in the oil and gas sector. But I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about your emergency response part of the company, because if there's one thing that we learned when we interviewed Kathy Laney, the president of Suncoast Resources, was how really involved you guys are with being a partner in Texas and probably the majority of the United States when we have an emergency. So let's back up a little bit and talk about Hurricane Harvey. It hit here in Houston, y'all's hometown. It hit the coast as well, South Texas. What part did Suncoast Resource play in helping Texans deal with this disaster?
Well, Suncoast Resources is really the emergency fuel company of distinction, earned by responding to over 40 named storms over the last 15 years. So during periods of peril, people have come to rely on Suncoast to provide them the fuel for their generators to get them up and running. Mm-hmm. So when the lights go out and access to the grid is interrupted, obviously hospitals need fuel to keep the lights on, to keep all the equipment running.
Senior citizen
homes did require that, and we responded to several of those. We got calls from Precinct 1 Constable and wanted us to respond to the Jewish senior living facility in Bel Air, and in spite of the fact that the roads were flooded, they needed fuel desperately, and we responded and received an accommodation just recently for that. But when Harvey hit, followed by Irma and then Maria, particularly Harvey, of course, we were called on by the state of Texas, and we responded by setting up fuel pods located in strategic locations all around the Houston and South Texas area, directed by the governor's office. And we actually embedded our HSE director in the bunker in Austin so that she could keep touch with all the various agencies that need to be part and parcel of the emergency response efforts by the state of Texas. So what we did is we hauled fuel from wherever we could get it to supply customers of every size, contract customers specifically, with the fuel that they needed to keep rolling, be it a retail location, construction operations, the military, the U.S. Coast Guard, all of the various state agencies that needed fuel for their vehicles, for their generators, for equipment to respond to folks that were in dire straits, first responders, rescue and recovery personnel and units. So it was very heartwarming for me to be part of the Suncoast team, to see Kathy and Kyle Laney basically working around the clock, along with a lot of other people in the emergency response fueling team, around the clock to respond to Harvey. Kathy and Kyle Laney specifically slept at Suncoast for 58 consecutive days. They manned the storm operations center that we have there, and we were in direct contact to the hundreds of drivers, emergency response, hazmat professional drivers that we have that are actually out in the field responding to the storms. So no sooner were we involved in weeks of fueling customers that needed the emergency fuel, but then Irma hit in Florida, and we dispatched a lot of trucks to Florida, and then followed by Maria when it devastated Caribbean islands, particularly Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and some of the other places. So we sent some of our emergency fueling equipment to Puerto Rico via ship and by military aircraft. In fact, this August, it will be 1 year we actually celebrate still being in Puerto Rico, fueling generators for individual people that have lost power and still are without power in the mountains, for example. Right. It's very heartwarming to participate in providing emergency fueling services to people in need.
Well, and I think that we all remember when Hurricane Harvey hit, it came with very little notice. And if you were in its path, it was devastating. Why I mention that is because I have a home in Rockport and we took an 80% loss. So not having access to basic fuel, air condition, it was hard. The whole community of South Texas, the whole coastal region, Corpus Christi, and was just completely wiped out of any kind of basic services. And when you think about it, when you go through that, it's those people are going through that. And Houston kind of went through a disaster as well when they opened up the levees. But then you also maybe didn't get affected, but you were in San Antonio or somewhere near there, and you're having problems at the pump because you can't seem to get access to gasoline. In other words, the whole entire state, I think, in many ways went through this disaster together. And the unsung hero, the untold hero, is a company like Suncoast Resources that is running on the front lines, just like we expect our law enforcement and our emergency responders to be. There is Suncoast Resources. And I think it's important for us to tell that story because I don't think that we really, as a state, understood how devastated it was for many of the residents in Texas, besides seeing it on the TV. But you also felt it in the sense that you probably were doing without, some resources yourself. And we saw a lot of people run from other parts of the state to come and try to help. And Suncoast was certainly one of those. When we get back, I want to try to get back on track of where is Suncoast heading to, this great company, and try to understand a little bit more about how the leadership and yourself, how you guys, what's your day look like. But we do have to take a quick break. You are listening to In the Oil Patch Radio Show, and we'll be right back. And we're back. You're listening to In the Oil Patch Radio Show. Our guest today is Stephen Boyd, who is the Senior Managing Director for Suncoast Resources. Stephen, we've talked a lot about Suncoast, your emergency preparation part of Suncoast, as well as how you all help the oil and gas sectors. There's something that I want to get into that really, we have a husband and wife team that basically own this enormous company, amazing company, and the employees that are there, it almost seems like the Suncoast Resources team is one big, large family almost. And we've had you guys as partners for many years. So I'd like for you to tell me a little bit about the culture at Suncoast Resources and what does the day in the life of an employee at Suncoast Resources look like?
Well, Suncoast Nation, as I refer to Suncoast as, is a family-oriented team of innovative and ingenious professionals. We have people that have been with Kathy Laney for 25, 26, 27, 28 years. So people really love Suncoast, and we have 900 hazmat certified professional drivers.
Wow.
We have almost 900 delivery vehicles in our fleet. Mm-hmm. So we deliver products around the clock every day of the year. I don't necessarily consider myself as working for Suncoast. I'm very loyal to the company, obviously, but I consider myself working for Kathy Laney directly. I would go through hell and high water for her, and I would never want to let her down. And Kathy and Kyle both put their money where their mouth is. They invest and reinvest millions of dollars in making sure that the assets and the resources that we have, the offices, the bulk plant facilities, the warehouse complexes, the vehicles that our drivers operate with around the clock every day of the year, are top notch. We have great strategic alliances with all of our suppliers. And I can tell you from ExxonMobil and Flint Hills Resources and Motiva Shell and all ConocoPhillips and Phillips 66 and
you all have them all
of the rest of them. They just marvel at the enthusiasm and the dynamic interplay between the team members at Suncoast. Suncoast is the finest company that I've ever worked for. I look forward to working every day. Most people do. And the innovation and the ingenuity that this group of family-oriented teammates demonstrate on a daily basis is very heartwarming. When there's a storm that's coming, folks sign up to participate in that, or to go to Puerto Rico, or sign up to drive trucks to the Northeast, or when a tornado strikes in the Midwest. We have a long list of people that are willing, ready, and able at a moment's notice to volunteer their time. And then in addition, Suncoast supports so many charities and so many agencies. Kathy Laney sits on the board of Southeast Junior Achievement, and we have an extreme loyalty to a elementary school, grade school, in fact, located very close. It's Cashmere Gardens Elementary, and I've been teaching there myself, along with a lot of my other teammates, for over a decade to try to teach the young people about entrepreneurial spirit. In the face of all odds, for example, even though you're born and raised into a poor environment and you think everything is against you, we try to convince them that you can, jump over the roadblock. You can kick it down. Don't accept mediocrity as your future. And through education and through the entrepreneurial spirit, all things are possible in America. Particularly in the oil patch, since America does run on oil, and the Permian Basin, for example, in West Texas is also referred to as Saudi Texas. And there's so many opportunities for great jobs and for making a huge contribution to our economy and to the economy of the United States.
Now, I want to ask you something in the last few minutes that we have. What is the future for the next 5 years for Suncoast? Can you share that with us? Have Kathy and Kyle given you a little bit of information? Where is Suncoast going in the next couple of years?
What Kathy has told me is she will do, and Kyle supports this 100%, is do whatever is necessary and is required to support the thousands of customers that have been loyal to Suncoast over the past 33 years. So if we see an opportunity to help someone out and develop a new product line, diversify our programs and services more than what they are now, we're going to go ahead and do that. Suncoast invested heavily in the physical assets and resources and the human assets and resources that we have, but also in the back office, in the truck technology that we bring to bear on a daily basis. We have cameras in there for safety, and safety really is job one at Suncoast also. We have electronic logging. We can provide customers with interactive data as we start delivering the product. In addition, we bolster the relationship that we have with our thousands of customers by providing over 8,000 above-ground storage tanks to hold the fuel and the lubricants that they require to keep them running at their own specific yards, all monitored and all dispatched based upon their own special needs. So what I would say is Suncoast is going to continue to grow, continue to expand, continue to open new facilities located near key strategic demand centers where our customers are domiciled, to provide them the finest service that they can get in the marketplace.
Well, that is all the time we have for today, but I do want to say it was such a treat to have you come into studio and talk to me a little bit about this amazing company.
Well, you're welcome, Kym. It was my pleasure.
Thanks again, Stephen, for being a guest on our show today.